Hello, Obsessive listeners. Thanks for downloading the latest episode of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. This was a big week for the podcast. It was actually really huge because we bought some new equipment and got a new program to edit. Also, the big news was that we signed up for the Indie PopCon, which is a new pop culture convention here in Indianapolis. That's going to be May 30th through June 1st, so we got a booth there, and we're going to take the podcast there. So if you're in the Indianapolis area, be on the lookout for that. We have a lot of really cool stuff planned, and also a bunch of other stuff happened that is all kind of behind the scenes, but I appreciate you guys listening to it. So this week's episode is episode 25. It's Space Movies Part 1. Here we talk about a bunch of space movies, particularly Gravity. Now, we spoiled the movie a lot. So if you're scared about getting it spoiled, either skip ahead past the Gravity discussion or check out the spots where you have to fast forward and all that. But it was a really good discussion. We went into some other discussions about other space movies and the space program in general. It was a lot of fun. Of course, feedback is always welcome at ovpodcast@gmail.com. Enjoy the episode. Welcome, everyone, to episode 25 of the Obsessive Viewer podcast. Today, we're talking about space movies. I'm your host, Matt Hurt. I'm at Obsessive Viewer. Joining me today is Mike White from Evansville at I am Mike White on Twitter, and Tiny from here in Speedway, where I am at Obsessive Tiny on the Twitters. So, guys, space movies.
Lots of space movies. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I love space movies. I feel like this is something, Matt, that you have been wanting to talk about forever.
I'm not gonna lie. This is I've been very excited about it. Like when you had the suggestion, Mike, and I'm gonna run with it totally. That I'm going to name the episode Part 1 because I know that just knowing the the vastness of space itself is mirrored by the vastness of space movies that have been released. Mm-hmm. So we're going to dive into this well quite often, I think, in the future, especially with next year with Christopher Nolan having releasing Interstellar. We're probably going to dip back into that a couple times.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I think our main topic for today, our main thing to talk about with space movies is I think all three of us really want to get to discussing Gravity. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's our primary source.
Yes.
Here.
Because it's most recent and it's amazing. Me personally, I've honestly seen it 3 times in the theater.
Wow.
And I intend on seeing it a 4th time when it hits the IMAX downtown.
Nice.
The big IMAX. So what do you guys think of Gravity?
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. That's the best way to start it. I had been looking forward to it a little bit just because it's Alfonso Cuaron and he hasn't done anything since I think since Children of Men, which was
Correct.
like 6 or 7 years ago. And I love that movie, so I was looking forward to it for that reason. But man, I didn't have it overhyped. It was that good. I just loved everything about it.
Nice. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I went in expecting to like it maybe more. I won't say that I'm let down, but I definitely am not calling it my movie of the year yet.
Okay.
Well, I guess I say yet, but I won't be calling it my movie of the year. There were a lot of things I liked about it. I wish it hadn't been so long since I've seen it. It's probably been 3 weeks now since I watched the movie, and I remember saying to you, Matt, early on there were things I didn't particularly like about George Clooney's character.
Right.
And I had also looked through Neil deGrasse Tyson's tweets about the movie, and we can kind of get into that later. So that took me out of the movie a little bit. But other than that, the movie is fantastic. I mean, it is edge of your seat. Interesting.
So you haven't seen it 3 times in the theater?
I have not. I've only seen it the one time.
Okay. Let me ask you guys this before we kind of get into the meat of the discussion. 3D or 2D?
I saw it in 3D, and I actually thought it was worth it for once.
Mike?
'Cause typically I'm not a
I
fan.
did not have an option, and I saw it in 3D. I would have seen it in 2D, and I still wish I saw it in 2D.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I saw it. I don't know. I feel like the nerd in Clerks 2 when he's like 3 for Return, 2 for Towers.
Yeah.
Counting the times he saw Lord of the Rings. But anyway, I've seen it twice in 3D and once in 2D. And I also think that the 3D actually enhanced it. There's a couple times where there's like clearly like the kind of like 3D gimmicky kind of stuff where like they take a tool and it floats off out of the screen and they grab it, that kind of stuff. But for the most part, that accounted for maybe 2 or 3 spots in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of the movie was just pure. The rest of the 3D was pure ambiance and atmosphere.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't get over and will never forgive the darkness that it brings to the screen. In a movie that takes place in the dark of space for 90 minutes, to make that darker is unforgivable. I can't get over it, and I can't get over the strain it does on my eyes. It's not worth the depth. It's not worth the gimmicky things. Of course, they're gimmicky. It's just not worth it. I hate 3D. That's borrowing Roger Ebert's I hated, but I really hate 3D with a passion.
Right. For our listeners to clarify about the darkness of it, the way that 3D is shown, and I might be wrong. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way it is, it's like a dual projection kind of thing where it's shown twice, like the same thing is shown, or two reels or whatever are shown concurrently or whatever, and that causes it to be darker or something like that. Am I explaining it right?
I think that's right.
Yeah,
Something like that.
I'm not 100%. Yeah.
No.
And plus, even more so when they film, if they film something for 3D specifically, they have to actually light it brighter than they normally would, just to,
Right.
to overcompensate for that.
right.
Yeah.
And just the glasses are tinted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Simply,
annoying.
the glasses are tinted. It's just bad. And I also don't wear contacts, but I have glasses, and that gets frustrating when you have to wear the glasses over the glasses.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I hate 3D just as much as the next guy, but like there's a difference between seeing Saw 3D or seeing Jurassic Park 3D and seeing Gravity in 3D, because Gravity, I mean, it's Alfonso Cuaron, and he's obviously, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but
That's right.
okay, good. It kind of sounded like I was saying Crayon. Anyway, Crayon or whatever. Alfonso Crayon. And he's basically, like, you know, when you go into his movie, he has a very artistic style, and like he's not going to just make it. He's going to put in the effort to make it worth it. I would say. And I know I mentioned that there's those 2 or 3 scenes where it's like very clearly like kind of 3D, but like I said, the rest of it's just perfect, or really well done.
Yeah.
I should say.
Right.
But let's
That's
get into the
understandable,
actual
whole
movie.
making it dark thing. I get that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So for our listeners, if you guys have been living under a rock, Gravity is the story of a veteran astronaut and a medical specialist, played by George Clooney and Sandra Bullock, who they're on a spacewalk to install something in the Hubble telescope, I believe, and when disaster strikes and they're suddenly floating freely in space and they have to work to try to get back. Get to safety. That's as much as I'll go into detail, and we can try to keep it spoiler free. But if there's spoilers, I'll put in timestamps and all that. But basically, the one thing that I noticed when I saw it again yesterday for the 3rd time was that, or I noticed this before, but I love the way that the movie opens. It's just a black screen that says temperatures in space range from like negative 248 degrees or 248 degrees and negative 200 and some odd degrees Fahrenheit, and then it says there's no air pressure, there's no oxygen, there's nothing to carry sound, and then and all the while the music is booming, and then when the music hits its peak, it says life in space is impossible, and then you just get a just beautiful shot of Earth.
Yeah.
And I just love that that's how he started it out, because it really got me. It really got me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
Nice.
The scope of the movie, just how grand it was, like juxtaposed with the isolation later on after, here we go, first spoiler alert, after Clooney's character floats away.
Right.
Yeah.
You had to have guessed that she's alone in this movie. Sorry to spoil that, but she gets alone. But just the juxtaposition of how big everything is, while also how alone she is as one person is probably my favorite thing about the movie. The feeling it gives you.
Nice.
Definitely.
I agree.
I just liked all the. I can't help but watch a Alfonso Cuaron movie and just watch the filmmaking aspect of it. Like, it was just so incredible how long the takes were. There were just these long things of dialogue, and I don't know, like that opening scene where she's working on the telescope, and George Clooney's character is just kind of flying around in that little jetpack thing. He keeps coming into frame and going out of frame, and it was just so cool. I just loved the continuity of it all. It's incredible filmmaking.
Absolutely.
I'm sad. It is incredible filmmaking. I am sad that I didn't make notes of some of the issues I had with the script, mostly with George Clooney's character. I'm embarrassed. This is not very good journalism here, but a couple of his lines early on just rubbed me the wrong way.
Really?
And I don't remember. Do you remember what I was referring to, Matt, early on in the movie?
No, because I think you weren't very you were very vague, because we were going to talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
But you said, I do remember you saying that he was very George Clooney.
Yes, that's right.
That I don't know. Maybe I just like George Clooney, but it didn't bother me at all. Like, I thought he was very. What I liked about his character a lot was that his character is a veteran astronaut. And one of the things I love most about in space movies in general is that they're problem solvers. They're trained to anticipate these catastrophic situations, and they're expected to undertake these issues and undertake these problems with this calmness or this even false confidence or everything. And he had this kind of this aura about him, this kind of this presence of mind to know that, okay, yeah, Sandra Bullock, this is her first spacewalk. We're about to die, but I need to be calm and collect so that she doesn't go through her oxygen supply. And that's what his performance conveyed to me, was that he was playing this kind of cool, collect, kind of astronaut guy whose sole mission is to make sure that she doesn't die, and that they maintain his clarity and thought processes.
Sure. One of the things I was remembering at the beginning of the movie was here's one of several Neil deGrasse Tyson tweets I'll mention. Mysteries of Gravity. Astronaut Clooney informs medical doctor Bullock what happens medically during oxygen deprivation.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But she was also panicking.
I know, but
another thing was, it was comical that a medical doctor was performing like an engineering task on
totally. Right.
I have no counter for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just gonna play the devil's advocate here, just so we're not all gushing over the movie.
Right.
I'll say early on, the movie was fantastic.
Yes.
And I was floored by the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's not the perfect piece of making that you guys say it is, or I don't think it is that you guys say it is.
I have some texts I want to read. I want to get your guys' read on them, but first I want to say that in terms of just the scope of the filmmaking and the beauty of it and the visuals alone, I would say it's, and I know Mikey, I know you haven't seen this, but I would say it's probably the most just gorgeous space movie I've seen since 2001.
I agree, 100%.
Thank you. Yes,
And what's amazing, I think it's probably, of space movies I've seen, I think it has the most like exterior shots, if you will, that takes place, that it has like the most screen time where they're doing a spacewalk. That's a pretty big feat. Although I did read that essentially what they really did with the movie is anytime that there was a spacewalk, all they really did was just film the actors' faces, and everything else is CGI. So I don't know if I'd call it, it's definitely not cheating, but it's just, it's not quite as incredible of a feat as we might think.
Right. But it's still the amount of effort
effective.
that was into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was texting a friend of mine, and he said, we were talking about Gravity, and he was like, again, this spoilers, like I said, I'll put spoiler warnings in here, so if you were wary of spoilers, go check the show notes or the site. But, so he said, his text was, this is my friend Robert, he said, in the scene where Clooney floats away, they're in space with almost no gravity. As soon as his momentum would have stopped, he would not have still been pulled away. They treated that scene like he was hanging off of a cliff, which bugged the S out of me. Yet they
That's
then
also a
have
Neil
her...
deGrasse Tyson tweet.
Is it? Okay.
It is, yeah.
Yet they then have her being able to navigate space with a fire extinguisher, which would actually be possible. Don't get me wrong, it was a beautifully shot, constructed movie, all that stuff. So what'd you guys think of that? Because that didn't really bother me because I don't know. I can't really explain. If she was hanging on, like her feet were tangled up in those like wires or whatever, and I feel like maybe her momentum wasn't slowed down to a complete stop. So
They were stopped pretty fast.
okay.
I don't mean quickly. I mean they were stopped dead.
Huh.
You know? That is one thing when I see the movie again will irk me.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it during. It was very compelling during, but knowing that Neil deGrasse Tyson said it, I'll probably have a problem with it next time I see it.
Yeah.
A simple tug.
I was more... Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she tugs once, or she tries to, but then her foot kind of comes undone a little bit.
Yeah, he would have come flying.
Huh.
I was more bugged by the fire extinguisher scene.
Really?
As cool as it was, it was pretty preposterous.
Sure.
Well, and more Neil Tyson tweets. Sorry. How Hubble, 350 miles up, ISS, 230 miles up, and a Chinese space station are all in sight lines of one another.
That's true.
Hundreds of
Yeah.
miles of distance between them, and she used a extinguisher to get from one to the other.
That's a good point.
Man, this movie's
Yeah.
a mess.
If you want to hear more about Neil deGrasse Tyson, you can listen to Star Talk Radio. There, now he has to
Yeah.
promote us.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's not nitpick the movie quite that much anymore. Let's get into the actual characterization and the kind of plot overall, because the story kind of follows Ryan Stone, played by Sandra Bullock, and her kind of growth as she. Oh, and that's another. That's another thing that my friend Robert had a problem with, was that she had 6 months of training, and there's no way, as he put it, there's no way that they would put someone in space with 6 months of training who has clear psychological issues like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Because she's still
True.
reeling from the death of her daughter.
Yep.
But aside from that, the movie is about her growth from being this kind of psychologically damaged woman who doesn't really, who just wants to go to space just to be away from people, to this person who's saving her own life and is finding the will to live again and being reborn, as it were. There's clear imagery of her, like when she goes into the space station and she gets out of the suit, like she's in the fetal position while floating there, and then when she goes when she finally, spoiler alert, when she finally makes it back to Earth, she kind of, it's almost like she's coming out of it's like she's being reborn, because she's kind of crawling, and then the final shot is her taking her first steps again as a new woman, as it were. So what did you guys think about her growth as a character and her story?
She grew.
I thought it was another impressive filmmaking feat, because they achieved all of this incredible, visual, all these incredibly visual scenes, and it would seem like a film that emphasizes the action and the thrills and visuals, but throughout all that, they managed to develop his character so well and so clearly. Like, you knew exactly what she was going through. And I think part of that, part of the credit goes to Sandy B as being a great actress.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was great for that reason, and I liked it a lot. I thought it was well written and well acted.
Nice.
It was incredible that they pulled it off in that kind of movie.
Yeah. Mike, how about you?
Yeah, I liked the evolution of the character very much. It wasn't until after thinking about it that I realized the certain scenes were supposed to represent rebirth.
Right.
It didn't scream it at me as I was watching the movie. More than anything, what I enjoyed about it were the action set pieces, especially. Excuse me, when she would be trying to get off a certain space station, and the debris would just kind of come behind it, and we see it before she notices it.
Yes,
was chilling. That's
Yeah,
probably my favorite scenes in the movie.
I was just gonna say, I was gonna save that for later, but
Sorry.
I was gonna say what your favorite scenes were, but that was gonna be mine, because it's when she's out of she's in the spacesuit and she's out in space, and then there's just debris flying, because the debris is on a 90-minute 90-minute kind of schedule around the Earth. And you just see her working, and then you just see bits and pieces of the debris picking away at the structure, and then the only sound you hear is the score. And I love that, because it's authentic, because you wouldn't hear it because it's space. But I love it, and it was. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, that was very good.
Very intense.
Was anybody fooled for a second that George Clooney was still alive when he comes back into
Not for a second.
Not for a second?
Not for a single second.
Yeah, me neither.
I was for a second.
Really? I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I was like, how did he get back?
Yeah, I thought it might have been one of a Chinese astronaut.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was going on. But then when they opened the hatch, and she didn't get sucked out immediately into space.
Yeah.
Then I was like, no, okay, she's dreaming.
Right. Yeah. I thought it was a good scene, though. I liked it a lot.
I liked the scene. I oftentimes say, don't give me a dream sequence. Just move the story along. But this one worked because and I think she was more even hallucinating than just dreaming.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And there was as she's kind of admitting defeat because she can't get the thing moving before that, and she's starting to lower the oxygen. I'm like seeing this fire extinguisher, and I'm like, use the fire extinguisher. I mean,
Me
it's
too.
so clear.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, but it was nice to see George Clooney again because I liked his character. But what else was there? There was a lot of stuff in this movie that I kind of wanted to bring up. We might have covered a lot of it, but
we have. The thing is, there's a lot to say about it, and it's a fantastic movie, but it's pretty straightforward.
It is. There's not like any. There's not like any deep, like we got the gist of the story. Like the depthness is in her character. It's not like Children of Men where it makes these big statements about a dystopian future or whatever.
Right. Yep.
Or humanity as a whole. I mean, this is a very self-contained story to her character arc.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, and it works phenomenally well with that.
Yep.
In my opinion, but faults and all, I love it.
Same here.
Yeah. So in honor of Gravity, I think we're going to discuss some of our favorite and most memorable space movies. If you guys want to move on to that,
Can't wait.
yes. All
Can't
right.
wait.
So who?
No,
should...
we should say, and I know you mentioned it earlier, that we're calling this Space Movies Part 1.
Yes.
Because we kind of wanted to save some of the bigger ones. We won't be talking about 2001.
Right.
We won't be talking about Star Wars. I don't know if either of you guys are going to talk about Star Trek, but I hadn't planned on it.
Nah.
No.
So we're going to save kind of some of the obvious ones,
Right.
I think, for later. So expect that in the future, but
yeah.
we're going to talk about some of the ones that interest us.
Yeah. I guess. Do you want me to kick it off or?
Sure.
I just watched Apollo 13 for the first time in like many years. Like I honestly don't remember the last time I watched it. And I love it. I absolutely love it. Tom Hanks is perfect. Everyone is just at the top of their game, and it goes back to what I said before about what I love about space movies is that it's about astronauts and just the best and brightest of their crop or whatever, solving problems. That's where a lot of good space movies go, and Apollo 13 is great because it is that, and it's also just a real story. And it's funny because I watched it, the last time I watched it was when I was much younger, and I don't think I could quite grasp the terror that they were feeling or the true depth of the situation. Like I knew, there was danger of them dying, but I didn't quite grasp how they would have died and what that would have meant for the country and for the world, for humanity in general. And it was just really cool to see that through that kind of lens. So that's my pick. What do you guys think of Apollo 13?
I love that movie as well. I meant to watch it before we did this episode, but I didn't get around to it.
Right.
I think it's incredible too. One of the things I love about it is it harkens back to a time when astronauts were considered rock stars that's essentially what they were to the American public. And like one of the scenes in the film shows Gary Sinise's character. I think he shows up to the launch. It shows him driving to the launch, and he shows up in a Corvette, like a Stingray Corvette. And back in those days, GM used to give every astronaut a Corvette. Like that's how cool, that's how revered these people were. And our generation kind of missed out on that. NASA's just kind of there now, and it's just not quite as romanticized as I think it should be. So that's one of the things I kind of like to see in the movie. It's just kind of cool.
Funny that you mentioned
that too.
NASA is just kind of there. Neil deGrasse Tyson tweet. He says, why we enjoy a sci-fi film set in make-believe space more than we enjoy actual people set in real space. And that's kind of a commentary about how we aren't they like not sending anybody into space anytime soon?
NASA is completely shut down the shuttle program. It's completely gone, and they're using private contractors like SpaceX, like Elon Musk's company or whatever, and other like privately funded companies as kind of using them as kind of taxis to the space station. Which I mean, I kind of like the idea of private organizations or private companies coming and doing their own research, because I mean, I think Elon Musk or someone has said like, yeah, we have plans for like a manned mission to Mars in 15 years or something like that. So I kind of like that idea, but I don't know. It comes down to who do you want. If you think about it, if you colonize space or whatever, who would you rather want colonizing space? Would you want corporations colonizing them and have sponsored colonies, or would you rather have countries and nations colonizing it and then have it be just, I don't know.
I'd rather have corporations, honestly.
Yeah.
Me too, actually.
McDonald's every day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Welcome to the moon, brought to you by Google.
exactly. Yeah, and I think that would actually be better than having just nations colonizing space, because in order for humanity to grow in space, they don't need to be these like different sects of things. Like if you see in space movies, bringing it back to the main topic, if you see in space movies, like the good space movies, they have astronauts and they have people on the crew who are multinational people, because that's what you need in order for humanity to actually thrive in space.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is joint kind of thing. That's part of what makes the International Space Station so great.
Cool. But getting back to Apollo 13, another really cool part of the movie is the fact that it shows both the struggle in space and the struggle that they go through on the ground too. From Houston, that's a really cool part. I think it's probably Ed Harris's best performance. I love him in that movie.
I agree.
That's another cool part of the movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Though I would probably give the edge to The Abyss. I still really like his performance in that.
That's true. Yeah.
Mike, what'd you think of Apollo 13? Did we talk about that?
No, we haven't, but I'm going to bow out because I haven't seen it since I saw it on TV, I don't know, 15 years ago.
Okay.
Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's been a long time.
What is your next one on your what's on your list, Mike?
Well, I want to talk about probably the most important space movie of all time. And that's a movie we've all seen, Armageddon.
Oh, jeez.
But no, I do want to talk about it because at what point did you guys hate it? How old were you when you first hated Armageddon?
Ugh. Tiny, do you want to take this one? I haven't seen it in years.
I don't hate it.
I don't hate it either. Thank you for
It's
saying that,
so-
because I don't hate it either.
It's so fun. It's so ridiculously fun. That's what's great about it.
Yep.
But like the first time I saw it, when I was 12 or 13 or whatever, I was like, "Oh, it's so awesome! It's so cool."
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older, I'm like, "This is ridiculous," but it's just too much fun to just disregard. I was probably in my late teens when I started kind of hating Michael Bay to an extent.
Right.
So that's probably when it started.
Okay. The cast is really good too.
Oh, it's great.
It's great. It's fantastic.
Ben
cast.
Affleck, Billy Bob Thornton,
Steve Buscemi is
Bruce
hilarious.
Willis, Steve Buscemi,
Bruce Willis, Liv Tyler,
yeah,
William
Liv Tyler,
Fichtner,
Yeah.
Yes,
Owen
nice.
Wilson, the late Michael Clark Duncan.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
it's
so
a great
really
cast.
good cast. And it's a fun popcorn movie. It's
Yeah.
And you know what? It even does exactly what you need a space movie to do: solve problems.
yeah,
And
exactly.
they do that constantly.
Oh yeah.
It's a fantastic movie. It's as ridiculous as the science can get. I think the script is pretty tight.
Yeah.
I think it tugs the emotional strings pretty well. I
Sure.
certainly cried the first 5 times I watched the movie.
That makes one of us.
Yep.
And it's a really funny movie. Like it's almost a comedy, I'd say.
Yeah. So why do you think people crap on it so much, do you think?
Because it's a group of oil drillers or whatever that are being sent into space. I mean, it seems it's much more than just far-fetched,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say.
Plus, it's Michael Bay, and he's become synonymous with mindless filmmaking,
Right.
mindless movies. So it's an
Right.
easy target, really. That's probably why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the freaking music, because I don't want to close my eyes. I don't want to fall asleep because I'd miss you, Maddie.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss a thing.
Do you know that song is the only #1 song that Aerosmith has ever had? It's the only #1 song they've ever had, and they didn't write it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's sad.
It is kind of
Wow.
Huh.
Huh.
sad. Written for the movie, the song.
Yeah.
And and they took it and went to number 1.
Wow.
Couldn't
we
do
all
it
hated
before,
it
haven't
after
done it
6 months.
since.
I haven't heard it since the movie, so I don't know if there's any lyrics that have anything to do with the movie, but I'm just imagining that it goes like I don't want to close my eyes, I don't want to miss you, baby. I don't want to miss a thing, like Bruce Willis being on the asteroid with the bomb and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You haven't
Is that
heard
part of
that
the
song
lyrics?
since the last time you saw the movie?
No.
It is
I've
on
heard
every
snippets.
3 iPod playlists I make. Every third playlist has I Don't Want to Miss a Thing on it.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Was it played at my wedding? I don't remember.
I actually have your program right here.
No, just on the dance floor.
Oh, I don't know.
It was.
It wasn't played in your
I am
wedding,
sure
I know
that
that.
it was, and I think I danced with my sister-in-law because I remember singing it because dancing with someone else that was not my wife I thought was awkward.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
You didn't dance with me, but whatever. That's cool.
No, what we did, we wouldn't call it dancing.
God.
Anyway, so yeah, I bring up Armageddon almost as a joke, but almost to kind of ask why it gets so much hate. I really did love that movie for a long time, and probably would still enjoy it if I saw it today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I agree with Tiny's sentiment that it is a lot of it's due to Michael Bay, the stigma of Michael Bay.
Yeah.
But he's made much worse movies.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Like I would say Armageddon, The Rock, the first Bad Boys, and the first Transformers are all pretty solid flicks.
Yeah. They're fun movies.
Yeah.
Yeah. They serve a purpose.
Sure.
Right.
So that's cool.
Matt,
But
your
what
turn.
about? Oh yes. Next one is my. It was bound to happen, guys. But 2007's Danny Boyle space movie Sunshine.
Nice.
Is that the one with the little girl and they drive across town in the van with Steve Carell? That's that movie, right?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. Absolutely.
I'm sorry. I'll stop.
That's fine. It was hilarious, but
No, Sunshine's a great movie.
it is, and so is Little Miss Sunshine, I should say.
Yeah,
'cause
they
I'm-
are. Tell us why you
I
love
love
it.
that movie.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to Kanye you.
Sunshine.
Yes.
Well, okay, for anyone who hasn't seen it, which if anyone hasn't seen it, they've heard the music in it because it's played in every trailer now. But most recently in Days of Future Past, X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
But Sunshine tells the story of a group of astronauts that are sent to the sun in order to reignite it by shooting a bomb into it. It takes place 7 years after a failed mission, so they're the Icarus II is the name of the ship. And it just goes from there into this really interesting story about these group of people who encounter a problem and they work toward fixing it. And what I love about it is that there's an undercurrent of this kind of God versus free will, kind of science versus faith kind of debate in it that isn't too overbearing, at least not until the third act. And then there's also this juxtaposition, this dichotomy between Cillian Murphy plays the physicist on the ship who designed the bomb, who he's kind of this very, very kind of clear thinking kind of individual, and then Chris Evans plays the mechanic on the ship, who they both have this very interesting relationship where they encounter a problem and they are polar opposites in the way that they handle it. And there's this kind of throughout the movie they kind of butt heads about how to handle situations like what's his name? Chris Evans' character, Mace, is extreme. He goes to the most extreme kind of things, and they work. And while Cillian Murphy's character Kappa is this very, very scientific thinker or whatever. But it's a really interesting dichotomy that is struck between the two. So, what did you guys think of Sunshine?
I loved it as well. To the nth degree. It's probably behind 2001, probably my favorite space movie.
Nice.
I think one of the most interesting parts is what you said as well, the juxtaposition of Chris Evans' character and Cillian Murphy's character. It's also notable that philosophically they're very different as well, meaning that the character is called Kappa, Robert Kappa. He's not religious, but he's like a very spiritual, like a very connected kind of person.
Right.
But Chris Evans' character is so he's so like just on the surface. Everything's on the surface. It's just there. He's very straightforward, focused. He doesn't seem very spiritual. He's just so they kind of conflict on that level too. And that's really great to see that kind of conflict depicted so well in a space movie, especially. And it's an incredible movie. The cast is all really great. It had it also has Rose Byrne in it. It's some, I can't remember some of the other actors, but it's just a really great movie. They all act really well. It seems like they all had really great chemistry. Part of it is just great writing too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
By Alex Garland, who wrote 28 Days Later.
Right.
I wanted to touch on something there, but I can't remember. Mike, what'd you think of Sunshine?
I really like how it takes place in the future. A lot of most of the space movies we've talked about so far take place now, and so kind of where the movie is bound by today's technology, and specifically with Armageddon, you say it's oil drillers going out there. That wouldn't happen now. But the first thing you said in your description of Sunshine is that they have to drop a bomb in the sun to reignite it, which right now sounds ridiculous.
Right.
But I love that we can buy it because it's the future.
Yeah, and it was pretty like the way that they had a really, really good scientific advisor, Brian Cox, Professor Brian Cox. Was kind of I think he has a show on Discovery Channel or one of those other channels, Science Channel, but he and it's very scientifically accurate. Like, I guess the way that it's possible for the sun to die out like that, and it's the way that they do it would actually work, to a certain degree.
You're right.
Yeah, to a certain trillion degrees. Am I right?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Anyway,
let's leave the really awful jokes to me, Matt.
Okay. Yeah. But yeah, and there was something else about it. I can't put my finger on it, but
anyway, I just like the futuristic stuff. I really like the way they go into the room where they can change the degree of sunlight that is let in, and how they kind of just test the limits that they can put up with, that their bodies can, the amount of sunlight that their bodies can put up with. I like the idea of that, a feeling that we can't even imagine, but something that would be cool to imagine.
It's like a drug to them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's actually worth mentioning to a certain extent that, like, on Google Plus, like for Obsessive Viewer, we have a Google Plus page somewhere. But like the background on it is of Searle, like in the observation room looking at the sun, and that's not incidental, that's not accidental, because I put it there specifically because it's an obsession. He's forming an obsession with looking at the sun.
Sure.
And it's the way that it plays out. Like, there's a part in the movie where I don't really want to spoil it, but
there's a part in the movie that's awesome.
There's a part of the movie where Searle is the psych officer on the ship, and he is in a position to speak with someone who is I don't know.
You might as well
just
leave it.
Yeah, I'll leave it. But there's it's a really good structure for a movie. And then the third act is kind of polarizing for a lot of people, but I like it.
Yeah.
I wrote about it in one of the Shocktober posts, the Horrors in Space post I wrote last month, but you can find it on the site. But I like it. I like it.
Yeah,
I love the movie.
one of the cooler aspects of the movie is the fact that it's typically space films have a lot of the conflict derives from the setting. You know, being in space is incredibly dangerous, so a lot of it is kind of man versus nature. But this film, there's obviously some of that, but there's it's almost like there's an emphasis. The ultimate crisis in the film comes with a man versus man conflict, and again, I won't spoil it, but it's about these characters that just butt heads, and it risks everything that this mission is about, which is ultimately saving the Earth. And it's just because of the whim of one person, one man versus another man, that it could all be destroyed or saved. It's really interesting how that plays out in a space movie. You wouldn't necessarily suspect that.
Absolutely.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. In Mike, to your point about it being set in the future, there's actually, if anyone has the Blu-ray or the DVD, I highly recommend checking out the commentary with Danny Boyle, because I mean he's such a charming guy and he's so cool to listen to that it's just him talking about the movie, and like he's just having a blast talking about his movie. But he makes a point that he talks about the movie set 50 years into the future, so it's not much into the future. But he said that when he was making it, that he used what I think I think another director gave him the tip that to use what they call the red bus rule, where in I think it's red bus rule, but like in London, 50 years ago in London, the buses were red, I guess, right? And then if you look today, they're still red. So he used that as kind of like, so it's the technology is advanced, but it's not too advanced that it's outside the realm of possibility. Like they have like little communicator things that they have wrapped around their necks that look like iPods,
Right.
and they have like pretty much interfaces for touch screens and stuff like that. But it's still pretty much based now.
Cool.
The only thing that isn't the only thing that they get away with without explaining or anything is artificial gravity. But
Right. Although
I
the
give them a
ship
pass on that.
the ship does rotate though. Does that explain it, or?
I don't think the ship actually rotates. I think it just pieces of the ship rotate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that it for Sunshine? You guys want to move on to something else?
Yeah,
Just
move
go
on.
see Sunshine. Go rent it. Go
Check it out. If you
buy
like
it.
If you like music that you've heard in trailers, you'll love Sunshine.
Yeah. You're right. If you're listening to the music in Sunshine and you think to yourself, I've heard this before, it was in Sunshine first.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was written for Sunshine.
Right. So yeah, who's next? Tiny, do you have a next one?
Yeah. The first one I wanted to talk about was actually a movie that very little of it actually takes place in space, but it's about mankind's history with space. It's the movie called The Right Stuff. It's
Nice.
from 1983, and it is basically about the birth of NASA. That's kind of the best way to put it, and it really starts at the very beginning, where these basically test pilots are testing the newest planes. This was in the heat of the Red Scare and the Cold War, when we were trying to crank out new military technology every day, and there were these test pilots that would test these incredibly dangerous new jets. It was their job. They literally just flew jets just to test them out, which is kind of a sort of a bygone career that doesn't really exist anymore. The most famous of them was Chuck Yeager, who held all kinds of speed records for most of his life because that was his job. He was just a really interesting guy. But I think some of these other test pilots ended up becoming the first astronauts, the first men to ever go to space. And it's about recruiting. It was about recruiting these guys and building all this technology and how will they fly it? How's it going to operate in space? It's really good. It's got a great cast. Ed Harris plays John Glenn, who was the first American in space. And there's one of the coolest scenes of the movie is John Glenn's first experience in space. The first time we put him in space, he it's a true story. He has an experience where they've chalked it up to a hallucination because of possible oxygen deprivation. But he had an experience where he was his capsule was basically like shrouded with these small lights that were carrying his ship, guiding his capsule while he was out of communication. And he was, I'm not doing it justice, but to hear him tell the story, or I think maybe he wrote a memoir one time where he wrote it down, and it's an incredibly inspiring story, and it's kind of freaky, but to see, it's depicted pretty well in the movie. It's pretty cool.
Nice.
And that's just one example of it. It's a really cool movie. It's a little long though. It's over 3 hours.
Right.
But it is about building an entire agency of the government. Getting into space. That's kind of a big deal. So. It is a really great movie. I highly recommend it.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen it. It was on Netflix Instant for the longest time, but I actually just looked it up, and there's a 30th anniversary edition Blu-ray that's supposed to be released. It's supposed to have been released this week. So.
Oh, nice. I might have to pick that up.
Nice. I'm actually gonna get it now.
Cool.
That's awesome.
It's a really good movie.
Nice. I'll throw a link to the Blu-ray.
Cool.
In the
Mike, have you seen it?
I have not seen it.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I'm the weird one.
Yeah, it's funny, I was just listening to I think an episode of Nerdist where Matt Myra was talking. It was when they had Mike, I can't remember his name, but an astronaut on, and they were talking about the right stuff. And yeah, so I've been wanting to see it for a long time.
It's a good one.
Nice.
If you like Apollo 13, you'll like the right stuff.
Nice.
Cool.
So yeah, we can move on. I just wanted to bring that one up.
Awesome.
Cool.
Whose turn? Mike, what do you have next?
Yeah. I want to talk about a movie featuring. When people ask who my favorite actor is, I always tell them Sam Rockwell.
Nice.
And he has been for a while, but I think one of his shining moments is from the movie Moon. And you guys have seen the movie Moon, right?
Yeah.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Moon is excellent. It's directed by Duncan Jones, and the story is also by Duncan Jones. Of course, Duncan Jones is David Bowie's son. A little bit of trivia. I don't know. People know that. They kind of talk about that when he. Anytime you hear about Duncan Jones, it's David Bowie's son. Anyway, Sam Rockwell plays Sam Bell, and he is at the end of a 3-year work contract on the Lunar Industries. Basically, he's on the moon, and they are harvesting materials to send back to Earth. Helium-3, is that right?
Yeah.
That sounds right.
That's right.
And so he sends it back toward the end of his 3-year stint. He starts to hallucinate, and he sees a girl, and then his Mars or his moon rover, whatever it's called, I don't know. It crashes, and when he wakes up, he finds that another Sam Bell is on his station. Basically, it's the story of him figuring out who this other Sam Bell is. Is it a clone? Is he hallucinating? Is he real? Is the other one real? And it's awesome. It's such good work. There are very few actors in the movie. There's Sam Rockwell. Kevin Spacey is the voice of like his helper robot, and then there are a few other voices. But the story is excellent. It's a really good commentary on big corporations, but I think the strength of the movie is Sam Rockwell's performance, both as Sam Bell and as Sam Bell.
Yeah,
definitely, because they are two different characters. That's a good point. Yeah,
it's a really great movie. If you've ever wanted to see Sam Rockwell play with himself, it's really good.
Yeah.
No, but it's a great movie, and what's interesting about it is that it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was filmed like during the writer's strike.
Yeah.
So it was when they didn't have like any. It wasn't a big full production. It was a really limited budgeted movie.
Right.
And it's just, you wouldn't think it to see it because it's a really really well put together movie.
It's a visually impressive film, but it's not a film about visuals, if that makes sense.
Right.
You know, it's,
exactly.
Yeah.
Right. It's pretty cool. And one of the things I love about it so much is that it's so it puts this really it makes a really interesting point about hope, how powerful of a driving force that can be, even for someone that's he's essentially going towards a false end, essentially, and he knows it, but he's still incredibly excited. And I don't know, it's a really great performance on Sam Rockwell. Obviously the entire film rests on his shoulders,
right.
Absolutely.
and he performed beyond admirably.
Absolutely.
So it's a really great movie.
It was one of, or the favorite movie of the year that it came out for me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was definitely up there for me too.
Good pick.
He was nominated, right?
I don't think he was
I
nominated
don't
for
think
anything.
so.
I wanted him to be nominated. I wanted him to win, but I don't think he got it.
He deserved it, yeah.
We talking about Sam Rockwell?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
Huh.
It's unfortunate.
It really is, because he gives such a great performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so check out Moon. Really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to talk about just really briefly. I don't know. I know, Mike. I know you haven't seen this, but I don't know if Tiny's seen it. But the 1979 James Bond movie Moonraker.
Cool.
I've not
Have
seen
we?
it.
No.
I think
Tiny.
I think I have, but it's been so long ago I don't even remember it.
Okay, well, I'll be brief. The climax of the movie takes place in space. It's a Bond movie. You don't need to know why. But what I found interesting was I was watching the special features for it on the Blu-ray last night, and what I found interesting was the way that they filmed them. They filmed it because, like, okay, let me paint it for you. Basically, there's a shot of space where there's the Earth, space, a shuttle, a space station, and then another scene has space, Earth, all that in a space station, plus 40 guys in EVA suits firing laser guns at each other in space, just floating freely, firing a laser gun battle. Okay, so you got that picture in your head?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the way that they filmed it is actually really clever and actually pretty impressive. What they did was they filmed basically the space scene of it, I guess, the backdrop of space, and then they ran back the film and put in the shot of the space station or whatever over that.
Huh.
And then they ran it back and they put in each individual person in it.
Jeez.
Yeah, so they ended up they said that they had to run the film back something like 90 some times.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I can't imagine the stress that would cause, cuz anytime you run it back, you run the risk of ruining the film.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just thought that was just a really clever way to do it. And really interesting. And the finished product looks really good.
Interesting.
And that was another thing about it. There's something about like 60s, 70s depictions of space travel that I love. Like there's like in Moonraker, they're on the space station and you see all these controls that are like from the 70s, but they're being used on something that far exceeds the technology that's even possible today. And it kind of gives it this antique kind of vintage feel that I don't know, something about it I like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's kind of late 60s, late 70s sci-fi is just something I'm getting into a bit. And it's a good movie.
Do you know what's a really good sci-fi that came out in the late 70s? It's a movie called Star Wars.
Alien.
Star Wars.
Sorry. I thought you were talking about Alien.
Oh, really? Did you really?
No, I didn't. I knew you were talking about Star Wars. Do we want to talk about anything else? Whose turn is it?
I don't know. Do we have time to do two more? We're kind of getting...
We are kind of.
We're running.
We need to do.
We took about
Potpourri,
10 minutes off, so we're running at about 50 now. And if we want to do Potpourri, we better get to it.
Yeah, let's just do Potpourri.
That's
Okay.
cool.
For our listeners, Thank you for joining us for our space discussion. We will be back with another space discussion at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's more to be said. I feel like
there's
space
ton
movies are as vast as space itself.
Yes.
Exactly.
Nice
I'm
analogy.
excited. We didn't even get to mention Halloween in space. I'm sorry, man.
Or those, yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
sorry.
Or the quintessential space movie that everyone loves and it's revered by everyone.
No, we talked about Armageddon.
The Star Trek movies. What?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so we'll be back with another space discussion.
Okay, well, we're at the point in our episode where we always come to the end and we discuss what we've been watching lately. We like to call it our potpourri section. We can discuss anything as long as it smells good.
I always love this part because it feels like we're just catching up, you know,
It
guys?
really is.
Yeah, it's nice.
It's like we never just talk anymore.
Yeah.
Never.
We're always like, space movies. Like,
Space movie. What should we talk about? Well, we got an agenda.
right.
We have the agenda that we have to stick to. That's Matt. That's my impression of Matt.
Yes, I'm a very
That's how I read his text messages.
He's a taskmaster.
stern ruler.
We have an
Text
agenda.
messages and-
Dudes, why don't we just, this is me, why don't we just do like potpourri the whole time and catch up? And Matt's like, no, dude, you suck. We got an agenda. I had to censor myself because there's actually cuss words when he talks.
Nice.
He yells at Tiny and me
I do.
in text.
Yeah.
Yes, and long emails
Mhm.
of just berating them.
Mhm.
He rules this podcast with an iron fist.
I do. Yes.
Yep. So, what have you guys been watching?
It's a good question. Tiny, do you want to start us off?
I'll start us off because you guys are going to hate me. But I wanted to bring it up because it's something that we never bring up in this podcast. I finally broke down after a couple years and just so many people pestering me. I broke down and I watched like 3 episodes of Duck Dynasty.
Oh,
Oh,
Tiny.
Yeah, I know.
Oh man!
But
I've seen probably
I
3
hope
episodes
you
of it.
will. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
We can
I-
talk about Duck Dynasty. That's okay. Check your emails right now. Go ahead.
Matt and I have talked about this a little
Dude,
bit.
the pod chat is blowing up right now.
Expletive, 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 expletive.
Big angry smiley face.
But Matt and I have talked about this a little bit, and Matt just hates reality TV so much that he doesn't even want to know what it's about. So
And
Yeah.
I'm proud to say that I have no idea what Duck Dynasty is about. I have no
Okay.
I don't know. Are there literal ducks involved, or is there a dynasty actually? I don't know. I have no idea.
I can ruin it for you, or I cannot. I could still talk about it without ruining it for you.
Please don't. Please
Okay.
don't ruin it
I
for
won't.
me.
I won't. Okay. But it's. I'm glad to
Wait,
report.
why?
That
What do you mean ruin it? Do you plan to
what?
watch it one day, Matt? Matt, do
No,
you,
I
do you
just-
plan to watch it one day? What do you mean ruin it?
I want to go as long as possible without knowing what it is because I feel
Now,
like it
come
shouldn't
on.
be on the radar. What?
Come on.
I've went this long.
All right.
yeah. I didn't know what it was about for a couple years either, and I just didn't care.
Well, I
to
teach
know.
at Boonville High School, so I
You don't have a choice.
don't have a choice, right? It's like every third book report is about Psy's autobiography.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Not
Anyways.
that I'm judging anyone for watching it. I mean, you can watch whatever you want, but
Oh, judge away.
it's just not for me.
Go ahead, Tiny. What have you been watching? Give us your potpourri.
I'm glad to report that I will not be watching it anymore.
Oh,
I
nice.
didn't really care for it that
Yeah.
much. But I do understand why people are attracted to it. But I think it's kind of a sad reason because you're basically just laughing at these group of people. You're not laughing with them. You're laughing at them because they're ridiculous. It's not a very kind concept of a show. It's kind of like going to a turn of the century circus and you're watching a freak show. That's kind of what it's like. A little bit
Whoa.
nicer than that, but
Now I'm going to say this. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no,
I'm interrupting you.
It's kind of funny. I laughed a little bit, but like I said, I was laughing at these people. I wasn't laughing with them. It's kind of a mean. It's kind of a mean theme in that sense, at least in my opinion. But it is funny, and I get why people watch it, but I won't be watching it anymore.
Let me say,
Yeah.
you are laughing at them. I am laughing at them. I come from up north. But down here, where I currently reside in southern Indiana, close to Boonville, Indiana, they laugh with it.
Huh.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
these are them. Those
True.
characters, and I mean characters on that show, are these kids, are my students, are their parents. Okay? They are doing those kinds of things. I'll say this about Duck Dynasty. It is more in the vein of a show like the Bam Margera's show 10 years ago. You remember that show? Viva La Bam?
Oh,
Yeah.
His show. It's more that than
It
the
is.
Kardashians.
It is.
Okay? And further, I don't fault them for being famous because they actually did work, sold a legitimate product, and got rich off of it, rather than
Absolutely.
making a sex tape and falling backwards into fame.
Absolutely.
That drives me
Absolutely.
insane about the
Right.
Kardashians. Now, while I don't get the entertainment from Duck Dynasty, it's not for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's wholesome for people who want wholesome entertainment. It's family related. It's extremely Christian, if that's your thing.
It is.
And it is, and these are genuine people who got famous for working hard. Now it is very much situational. It is very much scripted, and that drives me nuts. Just like any reality show drives me nuts. but I get the draw. I'm with you though, Tiny. I won't be watching it either.
Okay.
Yeah. But even though you said that a lot of people do watch it because it's representative of them, I think the reason why it's famous, it's famous because of people laughing at it. I think that's why it's famous.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yes.
Right. It's become part of pop culture because people laugh at it, not because it's representative.
Right.
But you are right though. There are a lot of people who probably identify with it.
Right.
Yep.
It's funny, Mike, that you mentioned. It's funny that you mentioned that down like in southern Indiana, it's all over the place and all that, because I noticed that like not even in Evansville, but like okay, like your wedding. I made a mental note of this because basically, like, this is a whole other story, but I was stranded 80 miles away from home the morning of your wedding, and this was like southeast Indiana. And then I had another hour and a half away from your wedding. So I was stranded there in the morning, and then I got a ride, and I'm like going, and we drove to your wedding, and we stopped at a few places, and like I just saw Duck Dynasty everywhere, and I'm like, this is maybe 60 to 70 miles south of Indianapolis, and it's all over the place there.
It's fanatical around here.
Yeah. So it was just interesting to see that so relatively close to home, it's all over the place. And I know that people in Indianapolis love it. I mean, it's a sensation, but it's just interesting to see it kind of overtake in different regions what is most visible.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of wanted to bring that up just as something a little bit different. Unless I'm mistaken, that's the first time we've mentioned reality television or discussed a show.
It is.
That's all I can. Yeah, I can.
It is. You're right.
Is.
And I don't think we were too hard on it.
I mean,
I think we need to do an episode.
I actually wouldn't be too. I wouldn't be too much against that. I mean, I'm not that against reality TV or anything. It's just I can see the merit. Like if
we can
drunk,
have a discussion about it sometime.
Yeah, like if I got like occasionally, like I went through like over the summer, I went through a spell where occasionally I'd go over to my friend Yuri and John's house, and just we'd have a few drinks and then watch something on Netflix. But we would what is it called? Tanked is the show. It's about this group of people that own a custom fish tank aquarium kind of thing, and like in my drunken stupor as I watch it, I'm just like I'm in awe of how ridiculously scripted and really forced it all is, and it was kind of entrancing, I would say.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I won't be watching Taint either. Well, I have two things to talk about, if you guys don't mind.
Go right ahead.
One briefly, my friend Jake and I, who I've mentioned on the podcast before, we see movies in theaters every Thursday night. We make a big deal out of it. We saw our 150th movie together.
Machete Kills.
Machete Kills. We saw.
Awesome.
It was, which is good because that is one of the early movies we saw 146 movies ago. Was Machete.
Right.
And so we were excited about Machete Kills. It was okay. It was kind of more of the same. Again, it was not as over the top as we hoped it would be. There's a trailer early on, so I'm not spoiling too much to say the trailer for the next movie, which again is just silly, but could actually happen, is Machete Kills again in space. And Machete Kills actually sets up for that sequel.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it is. I'm while the movie leaves me wanting for the most part, I am excited at the prospect of a Machete trilogy, especially one that takes place in space, because there were several Star Wars references in the movie, and Machete Kills in space is clearly a Star Wars ripoff.
Right.
So it'll be hilarious.
That's awesome.
So I saw that,
Awesome.
but I know you guys haven't seen it, so there's not much to talk about. What I do want to talk about is in the last 2 weeks or so, I've been binge watching New Girl. Finally,
Nice. Thank you.
yeah, and this might be a topic for a bigger discussion, but I've been waiting. I kind of put it off for a long time to tell Matt. I almost felt like I was cheating on him. He one of his favorite shows on TV, or one of his favorite TV shows on TV that used to be on TV, was Happy Endings.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept telling me to watch Happy Endings, and I watched it, and I loved it, and we were crazy about it. Got through the 3 seasons in relatively quick time, and then so we're getting into New Girl, and we just adore it. And
Nice.
I've been waiting for a long time to tell Matt, and I texted him last night that
Yes, you dropped the bomb.
we think New Girl is the better show than Happy Endings. And I'll go a little bit further to explain how much I like it. I think the characters are great. I think they're really likable. And I'll also say I just finished today the season finale of season 1.
Nice.
And it is quite possibly one of the best season finales I've ever seen.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It was fantastic. I love the way it bookended. If the show ended with that episode, it would have felt like a really, really cute, quirky indie movie. The show is called New Girl, but the season 1 was absolutely about Nick and his character and the evolution of his character, and I loved it. It was brilliant.
Nice. Let me ask you this. First of all, I loved in the season finale, I loved oh wow, what's his name? Thomas Lennon.
Yes.
His cameo or his guest spot on it was he's in like 2 scenes, but he's just this goofy guy who's gonna move into the loft with them. But there's a scene where he's a weird guy in it, but he's bringing in boxes, and then all he's saying to himself is he's kind of singing along and he's dancing as he's moving these boxes into the room, and he's like, I like to move in. It's so goofy, but yeah, it's a good show. Okay. Let me ask you this as a challenge to you completely crapping on my sense of television.
No,
I'm totally
crapping
kidding. I'm totally
I
kidding.
know you are. But this conversation was much longer last night.
Yeah.
And we can touch on the highlights if you want, but
I'm going to ask you a new question.
Go ahead.
Okay. How does it stack up? How do any of the characters stack up against Damon Wayans Jr.'s character in Happy Endings?
Right.
Brad,
who I called
yes.
in our season 1 the funniest character on TV.
Yes.
They don't. But I'll say this. I did say that in the middle of season 2 of Happy Endings.
Okay.
And I do think that Brad got a little less play and a little less funny as time went on Happy Endings.
Okay.
But, you know, I am kind of shooting myself in the foot here because I talk about joke density, and Happy Endings probably has more joke density.
Yeah.
But, man, New Girl just has heart, and that's... I guess that is what I want in a sitcom. I am going to use something from our conversation. I talked to you last night about why I like New Girl better, and they're very similar shows, ensemble casts, obviously half-hour sitcoms, obviously premiered the same year, and so it's easy to compare the two. And the way I compared them to you was that Happy Endings is Seinfeld and New Girl is Friends. And while you applaud Seinfeld for its brilliance and hilarity, you don't so much like the characters because they are not like you at all. In fact, they're not great people.
No.
And I would say the same for Happy Endings. New Girl is like Friends in that they are like your friends. And I think the characters in New Girl are like my friends.
Yeah.
So while I will, while I will probably give you that the joke density of Happy Endings is better, I think New Girl is a better crafted story.
Okay, I can get on more with that. Totally.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think I just prefer Happy Endings. Just because it's Happy Endings, but
yeah.
But yeah,
it also has an underdog thing going for it. You know, like I can see liking it because of its underdogness, and I think that's perfectly fine. I liked rooting for it, and I was bummed when I found out that it wasn't coming back on.
Right.
It's fun to root for that kind of thing, and it told jokes and did joke runs that no other TV show on TV does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Sorry.
But I also think New Girl is crafting stories like no other sitcom on TV is doing. Anyway, yeah, it was a whole big thing. New Girl, Happy Endings. I'm really excited to see Damon Wayans Jr. on New Girl.
Me too.
Next season, but we got to get through season 2 and season 3 first. So I'm excited to do that. That's what
he's
going to
be. I think he's in season 3.
Yep.
Yeah,
cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I love the show, so I need to watch season 3 actually. But yeah, it's a good show. I won't. I'm glad that you're watching it. Maybe we can expand on it more. Like maybe when you're done with it, we can do like our 3rd sitcom episode or something.
Sounds good.
Because I know we promised a trilogy of sitcom episodes and
we did.
Never really delivered. But yeah. Cool. Does that just leave me?
Yep. That's
you.
Oh,
cool. I actually didn't really have anything prepared, but this kind of goes back to space movies. I didn't include this in the discussion because I know both of you guys haven't seen this, but I haven't seen either of these movies. But there's a Europa Report and The Last Days on Mars. They're 2 movies from Magnet. They're on Twitter. They're called Magnet Releasing, but it's basically this production company that they put out these kind of limited run movies, or they're a major distributor, I guess, but they're kind of like indie movies, I guess. But they release a lot of genre movies, I would say. And Europa Report and The Last Days on Mars both released this year, both space movies, and both are pretty good. Europa Report is about a manned mission to Jupiter's moon Europa in search of like in search of life there, and things go awry. It gets kind of crazy, but it's a solid movie. It goes back to the whole astronauts and astronauts solving problems kind of thing, and talking like the way that movie's presented, it's told in footage that comes back to Earth from the mission. So it's not necessarily found footage, it's just footage from the mission, I guess, so like security cameras. So I guess it is kind of found footage, but it's also it's really cool because it's presented. It's intercut between that and interviews with like the heads of the mission, like the company that funded it and all that. So it's like intercut between that and then the mission, and also some news footage of the launch and everything. And it's just it's immersive is the word I would use. It made me feel like this feels like it's an actual mission to Europa. And there are like scenes where the characters are sitting on the ship and they're talking about how they need to handle a certain situation that's come up. And I'm like, I could sit here and watch this all day. I could watch just astronauts solving problems all day. I just loved that feel to it. So it's a solid movie. And then The Last Days on Mars stars Liev Schreiber, who I love. He's awesome. It's about a group on Mars who encounter problems, mysterious problems, I guess, in their like the 19 hours before they're picked up, for the end of their mission. And it's a solid movie too. It kind of, for the Doctor Who fans out there, it reminded me a lot of the Waters on Mars episode, the special episode that was part of David Tennant's like last batch of episodes. And I think 2009. So it reminded me a lot of that. It reminded me so much of that to the point where I actually looked up filming locations for both the movie and that episode, because I was positive that they filmed it in the same place, but they didn't. But so it kind of reminded me of that, and it was solid and everything. Liev Schreiber did a good job. Everyone else was pretty solid too. A lot of the whole astronauts solving problems and all that. But so both are pretty good. You could check it out. Last Days on Mars is on iTunes right now. You can check it out on iTunes and Video on Demand. I'll throw a link in the show notes and everything. And Europa Report's on Blu-ray right now, and it's a pretty good looking Blu-ray too. So, yeah, I recommend both of them.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts, or should we put a bow on this thing?
Put a bow on her.
Put a bow on it.
Right.
We'll see you next week for our discussion on... What are we talking about next week?
The fall TV season. With
the fall TV season.
Yes.
This is going to be good.
Oh, yes. And if everything goes right, we'll have a special guest.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it should be good. Yeah.
Can't wait.
All right.
How I Met Your Mother.
Wait, what?
We got to talk about How I Met Your Mother. It's the fall TV season.
Have to. Yeah, totally.
And which is better, Raw or SmackDown? Is that still a thing?
I honestly have...
I have no idea.
I think it might be.
I don't know.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, oh well. All right, so thanks for listening to The Obsessive Viewer. I'm Matt. You can find me on Twitter at Obsessive Viewer. You can find Mike at I am Mike White. Tiny is at Obsessive Tiny. As always, you can find us on the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where we just wrapped up a big month of horror-related Shocktober reviews and recommendations and all that stuff. You can find that on the Shocktober tab, and also any up-to-date posts that I may post in the coming week. And then you can also find back episodes of the podcast at ovpodcast.com. They're all right there for your downloading pleasure. And of course, you can find us on iTunes and like us on Facebook at Obsessive Viewer, and find us on iTunes and review us. We really appreciate that. We love getting reviews and subscribe to us. And you can email us at ovpodcast@gmail.com. Anything you want, any topics you want us to cover, any audio files you want to send to be included in the show. Absolutely, we might. I don't know how to set up a voicemail, so. That's the next best way to do it, I guess. So yeah, that about covers it. Am I missing anything, guys?
I think we're good.
Yep, I don't think so.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next week.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening.
Sorry, guys. I'm a little distracted. I'm looking at my tonsils again.